Dudes and dudettes, you are listening to episode 6 of the Check Engine podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. You're listening to the only podcast produced by 3 winners of IMSA's Spirit of the Race Award. Of course, now you know that came from the 2015 Salem 6 Hours of the Glen. My name is Nick. Behind the controls, as usual, is Tristan. How are you, sir?
Doing well, doing well.
Quick question for you, sir. If humans have fingertips but not toe tips, how come we tiptoe and we don't tip finger?
I just think we have toe tips. We just don't mention them.
Okay, fair enough.
It doesn't come up in common conversation.
All right, that's fair.
I think how about this? I think you could use it, and you could say that, and people would know what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm. You can catch things by your fingertips.
But we just don't choose to say toe tips.
That's fair.
I think people would know what you're saying.
That's fair. Also with me tonight, doing his best Tristan impression with the screen set up like he's behind the controls.
Yeah.
Is Andrew. Andrew, my question for you, how many lows could Rob Lowe rob if Rob Lowe could rob lows?
I thought they were closing all the lows. Is that not a thing that was going on?
I hope so, because my company is not a partner with them.
Well, there you go. But I gotta say 8, simply because I think he'd get 6 of them on looks alone.
Mm-hmm.
1 while the cops weren't looking, and then there'd be like the big car chase after the next one.
Yeah,
so,
probably. Yeah. And
that seems
I
fair.
mean, my God, you are correct.
The answer is in fact 8.
The answer is in fact 8. That is incredible. Well done, Andrew. As you can tell, folks, we are not professionals. On this podcast, you are not going to find automotive journalists or anybody who works for a race team or a car company or any sort of brand.
Works for being the operative word. If you are familiar with last week's podcast, we might all volunteer for a race team in the near future, but we will not work for one.
Right.
Correct. Yeah. But what you're going to find here is just 3 guys who love talking about cars and racing. We're fanboys. We're groupies.
Absolutely.
We are car groupies.
Yes.
We are trying to get VIP passes and meet whoever we can, whenever we can.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm trying to get in the back room with that Supra.
By any means possible. By any means possible. But anyway, the discussions you hear us having are the same discussions we've already had at car shows, in living rooms, in garages, at racetracks. And we really want you guys to be a part of these discussions. So, as always, reach out to us. We're on social. We're all over the place. We have the Facebook, we have the Twitter, and we have the Instagram. Facebook, we're at Check Engine Podcast. Both Twitter and Instagram, you can find us at Check Engine Pod. There's no cast on the end of there. Be wary. We also have a website now. We're becoming more and more official. It is checkenginepodcast.com. We also have direct emails. If you want to just reach the show in general, you're going to go to inbox@checkenginepodcast.com. Or if you hate one of us individually and would like to tell us so, either one of our first names, Nick, Tristan, or Andrew, at checkenginepodcast.com. You can find us on Google Play, on iTunes, on Spotify, Overcast, Pocket Cast, or, of course, the main page is anchor.fm/checkenginepodcast. What is on the agenda tonight, everybody?
We can do a quick pace lap on this, and we got to make it quick because I'm sure we could actually spend a whole episode on this. But, as I'm sure you two have heard, the EPA wants to roll back MPG targets. I think they're original for 2025.
Yes.
I want to roll them back. Here's my question on that. Even if this happens, is it going to matter?
I vote no.
I mean, we're just kind of dumbfounded. I know, because I think you're all thinking along the lines that I am, that car manufacturers are locked into creating smaller engines with more power. They're locked into hybrid drivetrains. They're locked into electric cars to some degree, or hybrid. And they can't just shift, and I don't think they're going to shift away from what they're doing just because.
I mean, I think it would be an easy shift to make. I mean, I think you have all this technology, the tooling and research are done to make big, V8 engines without any efficiency concessions whatsoever. No forced induction. We know how to make that technology. We're Americans. But I think
the demon,
right?
Yeah.
But I think the issue here is that no matter what they roll back legislation-wise, what they're not going to roll back is gas prices. I mean, gas doesn't cost a few cents a gallon anymore, so I think you're going to run against, okay, we can make these cars, but who's going to buy them?
Who's going to buy them? That's the question here, because who are car brands targeting now? Mm-hmm. They're not targeting the people who are longing for big gas-guzzling muscle cars anymore. They're targeting the young professionals, the 18 to 30-year-olds who are more conscious of making the earth a greener place and making more sustainable energy. So, to your point, Andrew, you can't just stop a business on a dime. I mean, they had these regulations in place, and they targeted their efforts, their resources, their cash, the people they hire, the facilities they operate towards meeting these targets. And they're also seeing that, hey, the people that we're trying to sell to are responding to it.
Yep, absolutely.
So why would it matter so we beat your targets. Great, that's just a better advertising point.
Well, yeah, there's that too.
Because someone, Nick, you're in marketing, someone can always pitch it as, no matter what the government says, we're going to try to, make the world a better place. It's going to make, maybe they even try harder.
That'll be Toyota.
Yeah.
For sure.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
Or Subaru.
Subaru, yeah.
Bunch of do-gooders.
I was actually I was debating between the two. I thought Toyota would be funnier, but Subaru.
They're picking up their trash and
zero landfill.
Zero landfill and doing all that kind of stuff. So that is a good advertising play. Look, government mandate. We'll just pick a number here for the example. Government mandate is 20 miles per gallon. Well, guess what? All of our cars get 25 or more. Mm-hmm. We're not only matching the government mandate, we're crushing it.
Yeah.
You instantly have another selling point to put in your flyers and on your websites and all those types of things.
And it's not going to change what manufacturers make, because while our new targets actually brought us more Euro spec cars, those are the cars that are selling really well. Your Civic SIs, your Fiestas, and all those great cars from Ford were Euro spec. Everything GM brought in that sold really well, Euro spec to some degree.
Yeah, Euro spec, or at least a lot of the engineering was done to meet European standards.
And they're just going to keep making those same cars. They're not going to roll back this kind of stuff in Europe. We know that.
No.
So, I mean, I don't think it is going to make a difference much.
Nope. No, we shot that one down pretty quick.
Yeah, it was easy.
And in and out with that. Neat car news? Anyone?
I got a little one.
You got a little one?
Yeah, I got a moderately interesting car.
All right. Mine just real quick.
Round robin. Here we go. Andrew.
I was at the gym the other day. Outside was parked.
No, you weren't.
I was. Was parked this beautiful. I'm horrible with old cars, but a 1950s Chevy Bel Air wagon, white, gorgeous. Just white and chrome everywhere. And it looked like it was in really good shape. As I was running on the treadmill, I see a woman walk out with her kid from daycare, put him in the baby seat in the back, and drive off. And I was like, that is such a damn cool regular car. That is so cool.
Yeah, it's a cool one. That's something that, talking about EPA regulations.
It'll fit under the new one.
There you go. But yeah, no, that's pretty neat. I mean, especially if it was in good shape. You don't see them being literal family haulers much anymore.
Exactly. I was very impressed.
Yeah.
Shout to her.
As the only single guy at this table, please introduce me to her.
I will try. Next time I see her.
Nice. Thanks, man. Appreciate you. Tristan, what do you got?
Yeah, I mean, again, moderately neat. I did see one of the very rare Spec B Legacies out in the wild the other day.
Nice.
Being a Subaru fan, at least relatively recently in my life, but I have gone back and looked at what was available. It's basically a hot Legacy.
For those who might not know, that's their mid-size sedan with the WRX engine.
I don't think it's quite the WRX engine. I know they've got a lot of the suspension pieces, and I believe it had the manual transmission lifted from that.
Yes, it did.
But I think it has an uptuned. I believe it has an uptuned version of the 3.6R engine in it. I believe.
Even better, yeah.
Yeah. So
cool.
Not very. They only made them, I think, for 1 year.
Yeah.
So they were kind of hard to come by.
I've got one quick one too before we hop into the meat of the episode. And mine, the car itself isn't necessarily neat because it's pretty common. I saw it is in the parking lot at my place of employment, a Jeep Wrangler. Mm-hmm. Nothing special, except for the way the guy parks it all the time. So, first of all, it's there a lot, and it has an Illinois plate on it. So I don't know if he or she just moved, or if he's really making that commute.
In a Wrangler.
Yeah.
In a Wrangler, no less. But, you see on the pictures of Wranglers in magazines, or usually how the commercials normally end is when the thing stops and it's perched on the top of something and has one wheel kind of lifted on top of a rock or on top of going upstairs or something like that.
Yeah.
So in parking lots at the end of the rows, there's the curbing with either plants or gravel or whatever in there. This person always parks at the end and either puts his front tire or his rear tire up on that curbing.
Oh, jeez.
So it's sitting there perched just like a commercial every day.
Maybe he's a horrible driver. Maybe that's what's going. That's why he bought the Wrangler, because he curbs everything.
You think?
I don't know.
Or he's just really trying to show off the Wrangler like kind of a douchebag.
Well, I mean, not to be whatever about it. We have an expert in this at the table. You know who used to always drive up on snowbanks back in the day?
It's me. It's me.
It's Passat Tristan.
It's me. Well, yeah, Passat A4, Grand Cherokee, 4Runner, Outback. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
If there's a snow pile, I will park on it because no one else will, except for other people in a Jeep or a Subaru or an all-wheel drive Audi or Volkswagen. Mm-hmm. That's where you park. It's
Tristan,
there.
do you work in my building?
I don't.
Oh.
I don't.
Do you live in Illinois?
Also, no. No. I just registered my car there.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Any other pace laps before we jump into the heart of what we want to talk about?
No. I think we just jump in. Maybe
We'll keep them short and sweet, which is awesome, and we will jump into. Well, we're going digital today. Andrew, you want to set us up here? What's the premise of tonight?
Well, I call this episode the Gran Turismo 2 TLO because I learned something the other day on the internet. You can laugh. It's fine.
For those of you who may question what that means, it's Gran Turismo also,
Yes.
for example. Yes.
So,
Quick
anyways,
English lesson.
I learned this past week that there is a World Video Game Hall of Fame.
I didn't know, but I'm not surprised.
No,
Sure.
yeah. Well, much like toe tips. If someone said that to me, I would not be surprised. I would not think anything of it, but I also hadn't thought about it before.
Right. Well, it's fairly new. Founded in 2015. They've had 3 classes, and they've inducted a total of 16 video games. And it's all the stuff that you would expect. We have Pokemon. We got Legend of Zelda, Sonic, World of Warcraft, Tetris, Mario, Pong, Pac-Man. So your usual suspects. There's one problem. Not one of them is a racing game. Not one is a car game.
Boo!
I mean, this
Really?
not one. And for 2018, there's I think 12 finalists nominated. Not one of those is a car game either.
So this will be 3 classes without a car game.
4. There's already
yeah,
3
three-
classes.
Okay,
Yeah,
4. Okay.
Yep.
Gross.
So, clearly, this can't stand.
No.
Clearly, we are the best people to nominate a game that needs to be in the Hall of Fame because we love cars, we love video games, and we know a little bit about both. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. There's 4 things that the Hall requires for a game to be nominated. First one, icon status. Straightforward. It has to be an icon.
Okay.
Number 2 is longevity. So it's more than, like a fad game and has to have had popularity over time. They don't specify. There's like no minimum numbers or anything. Third is geographical reach. You have to meet the above 2 across international boundaries. And the 4th one is influence. It has to have exerted significant influence on the design or development of other games or on other entertainment or on the world at large.
Got it.
Okay.
So very straightforward.
Sure.
I'll give you a good example here. And I think it's right out the box. I think it's
How many are we nominating?
Oh, right, yeah. Well, let's think of 3. I mean, obviously we've worked on this a little beforehand, but let's nominate 3 each, and then maybe we can get it down to a final 3 that are, maybe the games that should most be in for sure.
Yeah, and then I think maybe, Nick, we could put together maybe even a poll, kind of see what you guys, the listeners, think. We'll get that out there and see if you can give us our finalists. We'll narrow it from 9 to 3, and then we'll see if we can get enough input to narrow that from 3 to 1.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Let us know what you think, and then we will take the poll results and go running and beat down the door of the Video Game Hall of Fame and say, listen, you assholes.
Yeah, we're right.
Get your stuff together and put in one of these games.
Yeah?
Sounds like a good plan.
Just gotta put. This is crazy. So
Anyway, 3 each. Let's roll.
I gave away my first one a little bit, but everyone who's played racing video games knows this is the granddaddy. It may just be the regular daddy, Of course.
Regular daddy.
Of course I'm talking about Gran Turismo.
Who's your regular daddy?
Who's your regular daddy? Not your stepdaddy.
Car game baby daddy, Gran Turismo.
Oh my god.
But it's Gran Turismo. We've all played it. We all know it. We all love it.
Yep.
Came out in 1998. On my birthday, 1998. It's not a big deal, but it's a big deal.
It's not a big deal.
So here's my question. Post 1998, can anybody say that they have a racing game that isn't Gran Turismo in some way? I mean, it has all the features. The trendsetter. It's a regular racing sim. It's got 100 plus cars, 11 tracks. You do little license exams to unlock more tracks. You do the races to earn money to buy and upgrade your cars. That's the formula. It spawned 10 sequels and spin-offs with a total 77 million copies in sales. This one game alone, the first one, almost 11 million, 10.85 million. Best rated game on the PlayStation. Highest selling game on the PlayStation. And for its cultural impact, I mean, it might not even be possible to measure it. Because when you look at this car roster from that game, every single car that we lust after, even today, that's, you know, a Japan tuner car, that's something rare, something special, they're all here. Acura NSX, Integra Type R. It had, you know, 3 different Vipers in there. The CRXs, the Accord Wagon, the NSX, you know, the RX-7, the Supra, all of those cars that
Those are all heavy hitters.
They're all in here. This is where it started.
Right, and I agree with the point you're trying to make, but I have not met one person who's lusted over an Accord wagon.
Oh, well, you should go to the Jalopnik forums.
Did they come in all-wheel drive?
I don't know. I don't think they did.
Because if they did, there's one right across the table from you.
Yeah, I saw that coming.
But this definitely, you just have to pay respect to the fact that, and I don't know how you would go back and prove it, but I think that if you looked at, you know, like Google Trends didn't exist at the time, but I think if you were to look at the popularity of those cars pre-1998 and post-1998, I think it would explode because that game was so good, it introduced those cars to America. That's what I think happened.
Yeah, I think that's, especially the introduction of cars, you know, to a whole generation of people with a video game controller in their hand.
Mm-hmm.
I may have later on in my life, as my car fandom has grown as I grew up, discovered some of those cars, like for instance, like the Skyline.
Right, yeah, that was in there too, Skyline.
But that's where you first heard of it, as a 11-ish, 10, 11, 12-year-old kid.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And again, you could have discovered it later on in life, but for a lot of kids who are in car culture today, who are heavy into it, Gran Turismo was that introduction.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's my first one.
That's a decent pick.
Yeah.
It's a decent pick. Which way we going around the table here, Tristan?
Up to you, man. I've got one I think is an excellent rebuttal.
Well,
so,
then I'll let you.
Let's
I'll let you have the
hear it.
floor.
All right.
I'll let you have the floor.
Now, my choice is of all the various versions of this game out there. I'm gonna go with Mario Kart 64.
Ooh.
Now,
that's big.
You know, so that's something that one in particular is the one that
You're
I
coming out of the
nominate.
box strong.
Yeah, and that's something that, you know, we're kind of pointing to specific games within a game series, because I think when you look at longevity of the games, you know, things like that, you look at the series as a whole. But you know, I would choose Mario Kart 64 for myself personally. I think it's one that really set the pattern for a lot of the rest of the various Mario Kart games that have come out since. But when you talk about the requirements, you know, in place from the Video Game Hall of Fame, you had to have international reach, you know, impact on the rest of the industry. You know, there are some very interesting Guinness World Records associated with Mario Kart 64.
Ooh, really?
Okay.
With just Mario Kart series in general. Sorry, not Mario Kart 64. First console kart racing game. So it's the first Super Mario Kart.
Oh, you're right.
Yep. Okay.
And so that the series had the first kart racing game, followed up by various ones from Nintendo and others. You had Diddy Kong Racing, Crash Bandicoot Racing, a lot of other, you know, kart racing games out there. Longest running kart racing franchise, and I think the biggest one, best selling racing game.
Okay, you silenced me there.
But we got a protest here.
The best-selling racing game, can't argue that, but this whole thing of best-selling or first kart racing game, name another one.
I did.
Yeah, Crash
Bandicoot
Racing.
Oh, wow. Okay, so there's
Diddy Kong
one.
Racing.
Diddy Kong Racing, and
There's
all those
two.
mobile rip-offs that they have now. Garfield Kart,
Cro-Magnon Racing.
Cro-Magnon Racing.
Yep.
They're all just not.
Exactly, but that's the thing, is that it's the longest running because it's the original. It's the best selling.
Okay, so that's like me saying, "Hey, I'm the tallest of the three in this room." There's like not a lot of competition there.
It's not a lot of competition, but there would be any other competition is the big thing. But
Right.
I mean, I think when you're looking at things that belong in the Hall of Fame, the best selling of an entire genre.
That's why I said I'll give you that.
Yeah, I think they belong in the Hall of Fame.
And if you would have let me protest before you said that, I think I would have held a lot more weight.
Yeah.
Just saying.
I mean, so we're talking about Gran Turismo with 70 million copies.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Then that's the whole series.
Mm-hmm.
Mario Kart, 100 million copies.
Oh, jeez.
100 million, almost, 30 million more, on top of Gran Turismo. And that's, it's mostly about, reach and number of consoles out there, because you've got, things like the Wii, GameCube, other Mario,
Game Boy,
Super Nintendo.
Mm-hmm.
Those are all really excellently selling consoles, and they all got a Mario Kart game.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
I mean, I think that's something that it was the most accessible for a lot of people. Before you're old enough to get into simulation racing games, you're playing Mario Kart with your friends and hitting them with shells.
Absolutely.
So I think that formation-wise, it's pretty important.
And it goes into it's kind of in pop culture now.
Mm-hmm.
A quick anecdote of my corporate national meeting we had a couple of months ago. One of the things that we could choose, like they gave us like 10 options for one day to choose R&R. Like we're not sitting in meetings, we're going out on the town, we're doing stuff. And one of them was indoor karting.
Yeah.
Of course, I chose that one. And one of the guys who came with me in our final race, in our feature event, he was starting in the back, but he put a green helmet on, and he said, "Y'all better watch out. I just might turn into a turtle shell."
Uh-huh. There you go.
So, I mean, it translates to real life, too. Like, it has this impact.
Yeah.
And he probably went car racing. He's like, "Oh my God, I love Mario Kart."
Yeah.
And of course, what the two have to do with each other is it's so separate, it barely matters.
So arguably, it is as far from a simulation racing game as you can get, almost, except for maybe the
My pick for my first pick, but yeah.
well,
Yeah,
that,
well,
or but maybe except for maybe that, we were trying to figure the name out earlier, but that child's toy where you have to turn the little steering wheel and match the backlit scrolling road film that went by. That might be the only thing further from simulation racing than Mario Kart. But I do think as a racing game, both in name and function, it's the best selling ever. I think it's had a huge cultural impact, and I think it deserves a shot at the Hall of Fame.
Those are heavyweight contenders.
Those are heavyweight contenders. Listeners, if you know what child's toy Tristan was trying to describe there, please comment and share.
Please
let us
tell
know.
me the name. I cannot find it for the life of me.
Yeah, we can't think of it. So if you had one, or at least know the name, let us know. Great pick. Both you guys came out with guns blazing. And I'm going to save kind of the best for last. So I'm going the other way. And I'm also the way I ordered this is least to most realistic as we go around.
There you go.
Because as I grew up, and for those of you, these guys know, you guys might get the idea from the other podcast, I'm the driver of the group, I would think, the racing guy. So now my games are as realistic as possible, or they're not even fun for me anymore. But the first game I want to nominate is far from that, because I was little, and it is San Francisco Rush.
Oh, San Francisco Rush. Oh my gosh.
Exactly.
Oh, man.
And you have the right voice to hit that too.
Yep.
I couldn't do it.
Yep.
So from Atari and Midway, it was released for arcade first in 1996, and then successively over the next couple of years, Nintendo in 97 and PlayStation in 1998. Small track lineup, 6 tracks, and then there's 2 hidden ones that you could unlock. Small car lineup. It had circuit mode, which is essentially just racing all the tracks. It had Death Race, which was
Race.
if you crashed, the race was over. You just couldn't crash, which was almost impossible in that game because that's literally all you did in San
They
Francisco
must
Rush.
not have had that in the arcade version.
It wasn't in the arcade. It was in the console version.
I'm just picturing the arcade in my head where I'm hearing it, I'm seeing the wheel and the visual. Yeah, it's absolutely.
Well, no, because you pay money for that arcade, they're not going to crash you out
in 5 seconds.
in 5 seconds. And then it also had practice mode, and I wanted to touch on the practice mode most specifically because you sit down with a buddy, and the cool thing about San Francisco Rush was there was a billion cheat codes that you could go
game modifiers
that you could go find and type in, up, down, C, triangle, this, or not triangle on Nintendo, but you get the idea. Just put in the sequence of buttons. And what me and my buddies would do would go to practice mode. We'd unlock unlimited time, unlimited lives, monster truck tires, so the cars were jacked up.
Oh.
Less gravity. So, we'd hit a pothole and be in the air doing cartwheels for, 45 seconds. And we would just have a blast because all we would do is just try new stunts. And if you're talking about trying to meet that criteria, as far as reach around the world, I'm not sure, to be honest with you, what arcades outside of the U.S. have San Francisco Rush. Right. But even though it's over 20 years old, you go into any arcade in the States, Dave & Buster chain or any other local arcade, you are going to find some form of a San Francisco Rush game. And also, without knowing the names, the motorcycle version, the boat racing version,
Hydro
yeah.
Thunder.
Hydro Thunder. That's
Hydro
right.
Thunder, the cruising games.
The cruising games.
Yep.
It was the original of all those types of games.
Well, you got to remember, you'll never find just one. You'll find 3 or 4 of these machines, and they're all linked together. You can all play together.
Mm-hmm. We raced each other at your bachelor party.
We did.
After we raced each other for real with indoor go-karts.
That game is way harder than I remember.
Yeah,
those cars don't steer.
Yeah, you just got done racing real-ish electric go-karts, and then you go do this game, and it's impossible.
It was really, really difficult.
It is. It's. They don't take handling or any of that stuff into, when they make the physics of a game like that.
Yeah, you were mentioning all the things it was released for, arcade, etc. As far as I was ever concerned, it was only ever released for Nick's basement.
That's basically it. Yeah, because that's the only place we played it at.
Yep.
That's fun.
I play it now. Now that I have retired the N64, I do play it in arcades from time to time, just for a little nostalgia kick.
Yep,
but
gotta.
That's my nomination number 1.
That's real good.
Andrew. Numero dos.
Numero dos. I actually started with this game. This was the first one I was like, it has to be on there. And now looking at stuff like Gran Turismo, it looks really pitiful. But I know when I say the title of this game, you guys are going to completely agree with me that this needs to be in the hall.
Don't count on it.
You will, because it's Need for Speed Underground.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
you don't even need to say anything else.
For gamers of our generation, that's all you need to hear. It's the most iconic game of its generation, maybe even surpassing Gran Turismo, just because there were 2 or 3 of those.
Okay,
but you're thinking 1, you're thinking 2, whatever. When you say Need for Speed Underground, everyone who's played it knows exactly what you're talking about. They know exactly the tracks.
They start hearing the music.
Yep.
Probably the best racing soundtrack.
It's gotta be.
Oh,
the first time you open
name
that
one
game,
that's better.
The first time you open that game on any console, any system, the first song you hear is Get Low.
Yep.
So that was the song of 2003. The game came out in 2003, which was 2 years after the Fast and the Furious. It was riding that wave.
Yeah.
And it was a sensation at the time. It was on every major gaming platform of that era, including Game Boy Advance.
Yeah. Yep.
So, so it's a racing game. Based in the streets, there are circuits, drift racing, sprints, and it had drag racing too. Remember that?
Yes.
You shifted the gears and stuff.
Yes.
And again, this game brought back all of those tuner hits. Integra Type R, the Civic, the S2000, Impreza, Supra,
Golf.
Skyline, the Golf. Yeah, absolutely.
My choice, my opening car of choice for that game.
For every game. That probably started that trend.
Shut up.
No, it's true. But and then as you guys both already mentioned, that soundtrack. I mean,
how many of those did we try to get our hands on
for this podcast?
For the opening music
Most
for the
of them,
podcast,
like half of them.
And that's the thing. They had famous artists like Nate Dogg and
famous at the time.
and mystical. Yeah, well, they made songs for the game specifically.
Yeah, it didn't just have like a B-side sitting in the
Right.
studio somewhere. They're like, here, take this. Like they wrote specific songs just for the game.
Oh, and I can't think of a game other than Gran Turismo, which has their own song for the whole series, that's done that. And then, of course, the car customization, underglow, vinyls. You could make your own vinyl designs for the cars in layers.
Nitrous jets.
Nitrous
jets.
Absolutely. different sponsor decals. You could change the color of the decals. You can't do that in most racing games today.
And they had, Nick, you were just showing me some of the sponsor decals in the newest Gran Turismo, and a bunch of them aren't real because they don't have the rights to some of them.
Right. Right.
And you went through Need for Speed Underground, both 1 and 2, and you had everything. You had Gretty. You had
multiple
NOS.
versions of the same part. NOS and Nitro, a couple other Nitro companies.
Yep.
Underglow and Street Glow.
Gretty, Noise Speed,
NK, BBS.
Yep.
Yeah.
All of these. Yeah.
All the big players in the tuner industry. Everybody wanted to be a part of it.
It was a SEMA show on your console of choice for the time.
Absolutely.
It was great.
You guys remember the screen when you were between races was just your car rolling slowly through a covered tunnel.
Yes.
You could kind of like see out it was night, and you could move the camera around the car, see your sick new rims and the underglow, and just, there's nothing like it. But here's the thing. Now we just talked about Gran Turismo, almost 11 million lifetime. This game is at 1.7 million lifetime.
That's it?
That's it. That's it.
Wow.
Because it was only for one console generation. Though it came out for every console in that generation, that was it.
That's so weird. Because when you think of Gran Turismo, it was just on one console.
Yeah.
It wasn't even like across consoles.
It's so bizarre. But at the same time, it was the first game to hit that wave of tuner cars and take that kind of street tuning to the extreme. And now that's still in games. That's in Forza. It's still even a little bit in Gran Turismo. Different body kits, different
aesthetic
spoilers,
customization. Yeah.
all the painting you can do in all these games. I mean, that comes from here because it proved that people want it.
Yeah.
And I mean, the sales now, I'm like really stuck on that as the thing.
Yeah.
But
that might be your downfall on this one.
I want it so. I think we all want it so bad just because we have such clear, distinct memories of that game.
And didn't they get like actual like TV celebrities to do voices in the game, or is that the second one?
That I think was the second one. I'd have to double check. I didn't see anything specifically about that, but I know the second game had more voiceover work and stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, that's the thing. This with Underground, it also dictated the racing game direction of EA for 10 years.
Yep.
They were just trying to do Underground again.
Very true. Very true. Good choice.
Yeah. I think
the sales might do you in, but that's a good choice. I love that game.
especially when you talk about influence on later games. I think that one hits way above its sales numbers.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You're up, man.
Yeah. So moving on, from the, Nick, you're doing it in order, least real to most real. I'm going to jump from least real to most real and leave kind of in between for coming up next year. But my next one is the Forza series. In particular, the original one that came out for I believe the original Xbox was Forza. It was backwards compatible on the 360, so people played it forever. But it actually came out for the original Xbox.
I was gonna say 360, but I think you're right.
But because the original one came out in 2005, so that would have been original Xbox. So, and that was Turn 10 and Microsoft's answer to Polyphony Digital and Sony's Gran Turismo series. They wanted
different Turn 10 than we mentioned in the racetrack episode, by the way.
Yes.
Not Turn 10 at Sebring.
Actually, I wonder if
Is
there's
that where they
any,
got
I
the
wonder
name?
if there's any correlation there.
We need to investigate that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or have the listeners do it for us. Let us know, guys.
But and this is something that they, Microsoft really wanted to have a Gran Turismo killer in the way that most car companies want to have a 911 or a Boxster killer, because it kind of is the most obvious, visible standard on this kind of thing. It's the same thing with Gran Turismo being as big as it is. Everyone's looking for the Gran Turismo killer. And they decided to invest really hard. And they've gone through 7 different iterations of the core Forza Motorsport franchise and 3 of the Forza Horizon kind of open world games, where they're more kind of along the lines of Burnout or Need for Speed game, where you can drive from event to event versus having it be on set tracks. But the Forza games really brought that experience to the Xbox ecosystem. We're talking about for the Need for Speed games. We're talking about they were on every console and every platform and everything, and Need for Speed did, but Gran Turismo didn't, and neither did Forza.
Yep.
Eventually, they began rolling it out to Windows, because now Xbox and Windows are basically the same thing.
Yeah.
So they eventually moved it to quote unquote another platform, but it is still a Microsoft exclusive, and they've really done their best, and I think that's where the impact comes from, is that it was one of the first to really hit back hard against Gran Turismo and offer things like photo mode and some of the customization even a little bit earlier than Gran Turismo did.
Yeah.
Forza had car painting and decals and stuff like that. Even in the first one, I think they took a lot of what the industry learned from EA's ventures into Need for Speed Underground and threw simulation on top of it and came up with a different recipe. And it was one that has not had as much success. I can't find total sales numbers. Everything is from 2010 or something ridiculous like that for the whole series, but it is not several 100 million copies.
Right.
It's not that, but they've done a lot to partner with race series, other race media. They had the Top Gear guys when they were still on BBC who were doing voiceover for some of the motorsport games for car descriptions. They really tried to make it a game for car people. It's almost like I chose it because I can kind of draw parallels to us. It's they were not the professionals at the time, but they really liked cars and they wanted to make a really cool car game that people would want to play, and I think Forza did pretty well.
We got to remember one other thing that the Forza series has done for the gaming community and the car community at large. Speaks to cultural impact. They're the game. Forza 7 is the game that got Porsche to cancel its exclusivity agreement with Gran Turismo.
True.
They have those cars. They have Porsches in it at launch, and no other game has had that because of the exclusivity deal.
Yep. They announced the new GT3 at the Forza Motorsport 7 announce event at E3, actually. So they tied those releases together.
That might seem a little titchy, but if you look at the history of racing
it's
games...
a big deal.
That's a very big deal.
Yeah, it's a huge deal.
You had the offspring of it. You had Singers, you had Roughs, you had, but you did not have Porsches at launch for any game, if ever.
No, I don't think there was actually one game that did have them at launch, and it was Grid, but because of the exclusivity agreement, you could not purchase the cars or modify them in any way. You could only drive them in that one initial race.
That's right.
Remember how wild that was?
Yep. You're like, oh yeah, I can't wait to do more of this, and you never saw them again.
Never saw them. Weird, weird stuff. But yeah, so cultural impact, it's definitely got it.
Yeah.
Well done. Good choice.
What you got next, Nick?
My next choice sticks in the series that Andrew initially brought up. It is a Gran Turismo game. I am going with Gran Turismo 4. Because all of the things that Andrew talked about that kind of Gran Turismo started, Gran Turismo 4 for PlayStation 3 took all of that to the next level. Released in 2004, as I mentioned, on PlayStation 3. I distinctly remember, Tristan, you bought it, and I came over to your house, and we popped it in for the first time, and that intro came on. And it was...
This is one I own too.
Very atmospheric and symphonic. It was a lot of slow-mo when they were unloading what was at the time a new Ford GT. Not even the current iteration Ford GT, but the prior.
Choral music, singing. Oh, here comes a new car.
Unloading it off of the trailer, and then like a crewman, like a slow-mo, like testing the gun, like a type of thing, and then like the visor, and then it zooms in and the visor goes down, and now you're looking out the cockpit, and there's the pit board that goes from neutral to first gear, and Panama by Van Halen kicks in,
Oh,
and our jaws just hit the floor. And I think I was over at your house for like 57 straight hours.
Yeah, we played that entire game without stopping.
Without stopping. My face was on the side of a milk carton. Like, no one knew where I was. I think I had to put one eyeball back in my head. Like, it had just dropped out.
Sure.
But it was so addicting. And it took that long because of the sheer enormity of the game. 51 tracks, and not all of them were mirrored. So over 100 options for driving. 700 cars.
And when you think about that,
700 from 80 different manufacturers.
compared to games today where it's like, hey, we have 100 cars. That's a big deal. We're going to release another 50 in DLC. Great. You have 150 compared to...
Out of the box.
I'm wondering if
700 cars.
I'm wondering if Sport, even the newest Gran Turismo game, I don't think it doesn't even beat it.
It's not even close.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I don't even think Gran Turismo Sport has 100.
Oh, really?
Some of the... I'd have to check some of the early Forzas. Forza 4, Forza 5. They had a pretty good number, but it was not 700.
So, 700 cars, 80 manufacturers. This was the game that Gran Turismo also introduced that Forza mode. Photo mode from Forza. And those of you out there who have played Gran Turismo games know about the visuals. Forza gets close.
They do.
But
especially when you push it through 4K.
There is nothing like the visuals on a Gran Turismo game. And this was the first, on a PS3, on a better graphics platform to really take advantage of that. And I think it's underrated too, the sound. People talk about the visuals all the time. Gran Turismo nails the sound. Every car, you play that game with your buddies where, you listen to the engine and you try to pick out what car it is.
Yeah.
You could do that on the game. You wouldn't have to be standing on a street corner. You could actually do that on the game. It wasn't
just the generic...
Well, I will say there are times where Forza, you feel a little bit of that. And I don't know if it's
Forza's,
an issue of
like
leveling.
I said, Forza is close.
Yeah.
Forza's close on this stuff, but Gran Turismo just takes the cake. I found sales data as of 2016, so a 12-year run, 11.75 million copies sold.
Whoa.
Decent run. This game had the A spec and the B spec, where you could either drive or be the race engineer / crew chief and determine the pit strategies. When are you pitting for tires? What compound? How much fuel do you take?
You can also, we could also tell them how much to push.
Yes, you could say push or conserve during their stint.
Yeah.
There were actual real endurance races. Like, you could run the 24 hours of Le Mans, and it was actually 24 hours.
Oh, God.
Like, either you and your buddies would have to take shifts, or you would just set a really conserved stint in B-Spec and try to nap for 20 minutes.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And you want to talk about cultural impact? You want to talk about reach? GT4 was the platform that Nissan and Sony used for their GT Academy, which took it from gaming to real life. And if you're not familiar, Nissan and Sony banded together to use the Gran Turismo 4 game as a platform, as a contest. It was online racing, and they picked the fastest of a series of races all over. And they split it up into regions. It was North America, it was Europe, it was Asia. And the winners of these got to go to these final events. And if you won, you earned a contract as a Nissan factory race car driver in real life. You went from playing the video game to an actual race car driver, and it wasn't a gimmick. They're still doing it today, and it works.
They have them at racetracks sometimes. The Nissan brings the booth with the simulators.
Lucas Ordonez was the original winner in Europe. When Nissan tried 3-4 years ago, was it GT5?
It was 5.
It was 5?
Yeah.
Dang it.
Oh!
Dang
dun,
it.
Dun.
Dang it. Well, inspiration for it anyway.
Yeah. I think that was one of the first ones that had the online platform to support that.
Support it.
But
Support
I think they
the
didn't
idea.
roll it out until 5.
Ah.
Yeah.
Doom!
Yeah.
Oh, well. But I'm still going to go with this.
No,
Lucas
that was
Ordonez.
that was just bonus on top of the game itself. So
Lucas Ordonez, the original winner from Europe. When it was 3-4 years ago when Nissan had that big prototype push at Le Mans, the WEC, with those hybrids that were front wheel drive.
Yep.
That didn't go so hot.
Sorry.
They were trying something new. They didn't go so hot. Lucas Ordonez was one of the drivers. Brian Heitcotter was a delivery driver in California who got laid off. In his job search, he ended up winning the U.S. GT Academy. He raced a Nissan GTR and won races in the Pirelli World Challenge.
Crazy.
Jan Mardenborough was an 18-year-old British kid who tore his way up through the sports car, like actual touring cars and Nissan's 370s up through the GTRs. Ended up racing prototypes at Le Mans. Now he's over racing open wheel, Super Formula, and Super GT in Japan. And there's talks that he could get a Formula One seat.
Ooh.
And he's only like 24, 25 years old.
So
from
crazy.
Playing the video game. It works. It's a great marketing ploy, but it works. They found real talent.
And that was before a lot of this big push for, major league esports stuff. I mean, this was
that's a really good point.
8,
Yeah.
I think. And that was before. I mean, things were out there, but it was before it got super famous, before Twitch streaming, before a bunch of other stuff that made playing video games a viable profession for a lot of people. It was, at least in this country, it was a big deal. It was the first time that, you legitimized people playing video games were good at something.
Right. So, to stand corrected, it was not the game that they used for the GT Academy. It was the game that spawned the idea for due to the online platform.
Mm-hmm.
Again, we're not professionals. So thanks for the fact check.
Yeah, we're always open to correction.
We're always open to correction.
We'll leave it in. We'll leave it in.
But still, we're not even going to edit it out, folks. That's going to stay. But still, regardless, GT4, Hall of Fame game.
Yeah, I agree entirely. Panama, a Hall of Fame song for racing games.
Thank you, Van Halen.
We gotta do driving songs.
We're going to do a driving song episode at some point.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Round 3.
Yeah, my third game, and this one's a heart vote, more than a facts vote, but I just got to do it, and I'm going to follow in Tristan's shoes here and nominate a Forza game, but mine's going to be the first Forza Horizon game. Released in 2012, like he said, open world racing game, set at a festival. You drive between, literal festival tents to do races. And then in between, you can challenge other racers on the road to races. You can race with your friends. You can do stunts and time trials and all that different kind of stuff. Really solid car lineup. You start in a Corrado.
Yeah.
Underappreciated car.
We souped the hell out of that thing.
Yeah, you got it.
Yep.
And then we were racing like McLarens with it and winning.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
And it goes all the way up to like the LFA and all the best cars of the time. Multiple radio stations with the soundtrack. And the scenery is so incredible. I mean,
it's set in like Colorado,
it was
wasn't
set in an autumn Colorado.
Yeah.
And it was something, a world that really connected with me as a driver and a user. I totally fell in love with that game. But for its credentials, I mean, icon status. Does it have icon status? It's got to be close. So 2 successors, sold a bunch. It's started a series. It is also, I think, the standard by which all open world realistic racing games are now measured against. It was the first one to do it really well. So when you look at, for example, the new Need for Speed game, open world.
Yep. The Crew,
exactly.
Yeah.
They're just Horizon with cops, both of them.
Yeah.
I mean, you can do stunts, you can do other races, you can do all this stuff. That's just a Forza Horizon game with police. That game, only 2 million in sales, but then we have the other 2. International appeal. It actually outsold Europe, outsold America in terms of the first game. Japan was pretty low selling, though, in all honesty. So I just love it so much. I had to nominate it. Like I said, it's a hard vote more than a facts vote, but I do think there is an actual case for the game.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, that's going to be the same with mine too. My kind of in the middle, realistic wise, it's the Grid series.
Ooh, one of my personal favorites.
Codemasters. It was relatively realistic racing, but really they put a ton of effort into their crash damage engine. So much so that it was highlighted in all the commercials. You could go through and watch replays of things you've hit.
I remember
rewind through them.
Do you remember the first teaser for that game was a bridge overpass?
Yep.
and a car just slammed into it.
Yep.
That was the first trailer for the game.
And you're like, what is this?
And then, like, you know, they reversed it and showed the engine, the body damage, yeah, that was, it's like, what the heck?
So, realistic, both aesthetic and functional crash damage were a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
And then, for me, you know, other than it's kind of a hearts and minds thing, I played a ton of Grid. I loved Grid, and for me, it's a personal favorite, but I think another thing that it brought into play for the first time is beyond even some of the B-spec Gran Turismo modes where you're kind of being a race director. It was the first time you had a lot of input in team management.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was kind of one of the first ones where you look at things like, you know, Football Manager 2017, where you're not actually playing FIFA. You're just, you know, the manager. You're not even the coach.
You're just watching FIFA.
It's like, you're not even you're not even the coach. You're the manager of the team. You're making choices
Personnel
about
decisions.
And it's, you know, you choose drivers in Grid. You choose drivers. You choose sponsor types, and you know what kind of cars you're going to run. You design your livery, and that's on top of doing a bunch of the driving yourself. It was a whole separate addition to the game, above and beyond just the regular driver mode. So that's my third nomination.
Love it.
Good nomination. I haven't had too much experience in it, so I can't speak one way or the other about it. Heard good things.
Yeah,
heard good things. My nomination number 3. As I said, I'm going from least realistic to most. So this is the most realistic, I think, simulator outside of like an actual Formula One simulator or something that these guys use to prepare in real life. I'm going with iRacing.
Ooh.
It is an online subscription-based platform. It was launched in 2008, actually. It's been around for 10 years.
Really?
Really got popular, I think, in the last 3 or 4, I would say. But it is a pure simulation. Full damage. You don't get any view changes. All you have is the cockpit. You can't do the rear chase. You can't do the front bumper or the roof. No automatic transmissions. Everything is manual. You can do ABS or traction control if the car you're driving has that option.
Has it, yeah.
So like some GT3 spec cars and GT4 spec cars can have that. And the most realistic setups, I mean, you have full setup sheets that the engineers use on actual cars at a racetrack here. I mean, there are people who before their race session begins will spend all day practicing to dial in their iRacing setup. I don't have that kind of time, so I usually just use the baseline setup and I hop in about 10 minutes before my session starts just to familiarize myself with the track so I don't hit too much stuff. There's no AI. You are racing against real people all the time. Now, other games now through consoles, PlayStation, Xbox have that ability now too, but the basic games always was you against the computer, where this is not. This is you against other people all around the world. You have to buy, when you initially log in, sign up, they'll give you a small bit of tracks, like 5 tracks and 5 cars to get you going, but everything else is an add-on purchase, like $12 to $15 to get more tracks and cars, and they have everything from short track legend cars and late models all the way up to Formula One. They have the new 2018 IndyCar already loaded on there. They have the Audi and Porsche hybrid diesel LMP1 cars on there. They have everything from NASCAR. They have everything from local dirt ovals to the Nürburgring Nordschleife, La Sarthe, Circuit of the Americas, Road America, Daytona, Indy. All the tracks are on there. And they kind of police it with incident points and damage points. Like, your license isn't based on how fast you go necessarily. That's a small portion of it, but it's really if you hit things or people or not. So they really value clean racing over fast racing.
That's not the game for me. It's too realistic.
The gripe I have on it, though, is like you'll get incident points if somebody hits you.
Oh, well,
like that kind of pisses me off. Like someone hits me in the back and I get 4 incident points. Like he hit me. I didn't do anything. Like, but that's the only gripe I have. Because for me, I'm big into the realistic stuff. And you can also kind of catch some names on there from time and again because a lot of drivers actually, like real race drivers, actually use it. I did a race at Road America one time, and I saw a name at the top of the timesheet, like way up at the top of the timesheet, like miles ahead of everybody. I'm like, I recognize that name. I think I've seen or heard that name before. So I looked it up. It was an Aston Martin factory driver that races in the World Endurance Championship.
Nice.
His name is Nicky Team, Thiim. You can look him up. He's real. He's got crazy, spiky, wicked blonde hair, and he is a real factory racing driver, and he whooped us that day. But I also got to say I could race against Nicky Team.
Sure.
There you go.
So that's my third pick.
All right, so we've got a few minutes here. We're coming down to the wire time-wise, but so we're going to try to narrow it down to 3. I mean, I think, I think we've got a pretty solid lock for the Gran Turismo series.
I think it has to be.
And Mario Kart.
Yeah, I totally agree.
What do we think for number 3?
I want to say iRacing.
Yeah, I think as a true simulator.
I don't think anything beats that at all.
As a true simulator?
Exactly.
Yeah. I think that's a pretty solid gamut. I think you've got everything from, the hardest core simulator to not with Mario Kart and Gran Turismo. Not in the middle, more towards the simulation side of things, but definitely a console game meant to be played with a controller or at best, a little USB racing wheel. You don't get the crazy simulator setups you get with iRacing with the 4 or 5 display monitors around you and tilting racing seats and all that stuff. So
so I'll go with it. So we have Mario Kart, we have the original Gran Turismo, and we have the iRacing online simulator platform. When this episode is released, we'll put up a poll and we'll let you, the listener, decide, and maybe we could take this whatever they decide. Maybe we'll present it to the Video Game Hall of Fame and see.
I think we really should.
And see if we can't get it in on the next, at least on the next nomination class.
I don't know who nominates, how they work it, but we'll figure it out.
We'll send them a sternly worded letter.
Yes,
exactly.
Strong, strenuous negotiations.
Yeah, we got to try it because they got to fix this.
But it is your pick, ladies and gentlemen. Mario Kart, Gran Turismo, iRacing. Look for the poll and let us know what you think.
Yeah.
It's about time we should wrap this thing up, I think, right?
Yeah, I think with that, we're pretty much all done for today.
Who are we thanking, or what are we thanking before we take off today?
I got to shout out the Wavebird, the greatest controller ever for the greatest console ever, Nintendo GameCube. Don't bother to at me. I know I'm right.
I would like to thank Snow Tires.
As it's snowing today.
As it is snowing this very day, yet early in April. Welcome to Wisconsin. Snow Tires, they allow me to travel when it's snowing. So I shout out to Snow Tires.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to, this is kind of out of left field, kind of a random thought, but I'm going to thank Scuba Gear.
All right.
Scuba Gear.
Scuba Gear. Think of how catastrophic the death toll would be for divers if it wasn't for Scuba Gear.
That might be Cart and Horse, but I'll allow
Just
it.
think about it. Just think about it.
What's a cart and horse?
An unsung hero, Scuba Gear.
Scuba Gear.
Saving lives every day.
All right, well.
And as always, thank you to the listener. Thanks for lending us your ear. Thank you for being part of the discussion. As we have mentioned, we are on social, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Find us, like us, comment on these episodes. Liking is cool. Share us. If you don't like us, maybe you know someone who will. So sharing is important. Being a part of this talk, this discussion is. Please comment. Go to checkenginepodcast.com. Find us directly at inbox@checkenginepodcast.com. Find the cast anywhere pods are cast. Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, Overcast, Pocket Cast, or at anchor.fm. We appreciate you tuning in. Even if we suck, you guys are awesome. So we can't wait to talk to you again. Thanks.